Hi everyone, today I am going to show you a demo on how to start our abstract spheres. So first I have my slab mat on the smooth side, just like last time. I also have my rubber ball. And then I also have this jar to set it on. You could use an old cottage cheese container or something. I just need to have space between the table and the bottom of my ball. I also have my PVC rolling pin, as well as my pre-wedged piece of clay wrapped in plastic so it doesn't get too dry. I also have some cling wrap or just any plastic that you could use to drape over the ball. This plastic could work as well. Alright, so to start my big slab, as you can see I have a really decent sized piece of clay. We're going to need a lot of clay here for this slab. It needs to be pretty big to be able to drape over the ball. So I'm going to start smacking it on each side, just kind of making it flat so it's easier for me to start rolling. Alrighty. So now I can go ahead and start rolling it out, going all the way across and flipping it constantly. It's really important to make sure that I'm always flipping it so it doesn't stick to the slab mat and it helps it to be more even. So just continue to roll out your slab, going all the way across. You don't want to just be rolling out the edges or from the middle, because then the middle will end up being really thick and then the edges will be really thin, and we need it to be even all the way across. Also notice how I keep flipping it. You'll notice you'll get little marks from your rolling pin, but that's okay. They can be smoothed out. So really take your time here. You've got to be patient, because you really want it to be nice and even, otherwise it'll just make it a lot tougher later. Keep flipping. Alright, now fast forward to having most of my slab completely rolled out. As you can see, it's fairly thin, but nice and even, right? So I'm just working all the way across. I flipped it over many times. Still flipping it over. I just want to make sure it's not sticking to my slab mat so I can lift it up and drape it over my ball. Now I'm going to measure it using my needle tool and my finger. So stick your finger on the end there and then just measure to see how thick it is. As you can see here, mine's pretty thin. It's maybe over 1/4 inch, but that's going to make it a lot easier. It's nice and even so it can drape over the ball. Alrighty, so now I'm going to get that out of the way, and I am going to get my ball out with the jar underneath and grab my plastic and drape it over the ball. This is so the clay doesn't stick to the ball once I pop the ball and need to pull it out. So I'm just smoothing that over nice all the way down to the bottom, nice and even. Looks good. Okay, so now comes the tricky part. But I believe in all of you. I know you can do it. You can either choose to, I gotta smooth that little hole from where I poked through real quick. So now you can either choose to drape the clay over, keeping it on your slab mat and slowly pushing it over it. But what I think is easier is to actually pick up my whole slab and drape it over. Center it right in the middle, so the ball should be right in the middle. And now just very gently and slowly, so the ball doesn't fall off the jar, just drape it over very carefully, okay? And so now, this is where I gotta be patient. I'm really slowly just pushing the the clay over my ball. Really slowly, spinning it around, pressing it as I go from the top down. You've got to take this really slow. Now spin it around, just kind of keep working it around there. See, now I have this seam. I'm going to kind of straighten that out. And then I'm going to like kind of push it into itself. Later I can just smooth that clay into one another. But see how much time I'm taking and being really gentle and just forming it over the ball from the top down so it gets that circular shape. And just keep spinning it around. And at this point, I'm kind of noticing that there's like little cracks in my clay because it's drying fast because it is so thin and I'm stretching it. So I have a couple options here. I can spritz it with a spray bottle, or I can get my hands wet and kind of just smooth some water into there just to keep it moisturized, but don't drench it, okay? So now I've put a little bit of water on my ball just to keep it moisturized while I'm stretching it and moving it, and I'm just continuing to form it around the rubber ball. Anywhere it's dry, I'm putting just minimal water so you can see these little cracks right here. I'm wanting to smooth those out. And these little seams right here, that's okay. You're gonna get those, right? So I'm adding a little bit of moisture and I'm just kind of rubbing that in. And then I'm gonna go in and just press those seams together very gently, always working from the top down, right? So I can push out any air bubbles. But see how I'm making that seam quickly disappear? So you really gotta just take your time and work at it while making sure that your clay isn't getting too dry. Now I'm getting towards the bottom of my ball, and so I'm just kind of pressing in. That's why it's important to have this little jar here, because otherwise you wouldn't be able to have that space to kind of work this clay down. It really takes some time here. Fast forwarding a little bit, as you can see, you're really starting to see the shape of the ball and see how I'm pressing in the bottom and smushing those little seams together. Now I'm using two hands and just kind of forming it around the bottom, always spinning it around. See, now it kind of looks like a spooky little ghost. But it looks good. You can see that ball in there, huh? Blending seams together too, always from the top down. Little fast forward again, you can just see me continuing to blend these seams. Pushing down. See all those little cracks that my clay got? I might get my fingers wet and kind of keep those moisturized and smooth them out. It'll be easier to smooth it out now when it's on the ball form instead of later when it's not, because it might be hard to reach your hand inside and give it the support you would need to smooth out the edges and the sides. Giving it a little spritz. Got to keep it moisturized. Just smooth it out. Taking my time. All right, now you can see I've slowly worked my clay down. Now it definitely looks like a little ghost. And I've just really taken my time to push that clay down. Now it has this little skirt thing going on the bottom. Spinning it around, make sure I'm getting all of those edges and really working it in. Now it can kind of start to go like downwards and under my ball. So I'm just working the clay down and out. And it's really starting to transform into a nice little globe. Now I'm pretty much at the point that I'm happy with my shape and I have this good sphere going on. I've smoothed out all my sides and now I just need to get rid of this little skirt here at the bottom. Just keeping it moisturized. So to get rid of that little bottom, I'm going to take my handy dandy fettling knife here. And I am just going to very carefully cut away at that excess that I don't need. So make sure you're supporting with one hand so your ball doesn't fall off your jar or whatever container you're using to hold it up. And just slowly in sections cut away See how I have my hand on top to support it while I pull away the clay, just in sections, not all at once. Make sure I'm holding the top. So just slowly trim that excess. Take your time. You don't want to be too rough or you can knock it over. All right. And see how I'm not cutting too close to my ball? I want to make sure that I'm not getting rid of too much so I still have an edge. Just little chunks at a time. Kind of trying to make it a little bit more even now. I'll make my final edge later, but for now it just needs to be enough there just in case you're going to attach some pieces, right? You don't want to cut away so much that you don't have a surface to attach additional pieces to and forms. Keeping it moisturized. All right. So now I have my ball nice and trimmed up, and I can move on to my next step. So now I am going to grab one of my plastic bowls that came in my kit, and I'm going to grab another piece of plastic or saran wrap, and I'm going to stick it inside of my bowl to protect it so the clay doesn't stick. And I am going to take my ball and flip it into the bowl. All right, so be careful, grab it from the bottom. Now give it a nice little flip and set it in there so you can start working on the top opening. Okay, so now I am ready to start working on my ball a little bit and maybe adding some forms and cleaning it up. So I'm going to tuck in that plastic really well so it's out of my way, smooth out some of the edges, and I'm actually going to clean it up a little bit more with my fettling knife. So I'm just going in and very delicately cutting away at those edges. Make sure you don't stab your ball and pop it. The edge of the fettling knife isn't too sharp, so you should be okay. But I'm just going to work at that edge, clean it up a little bit and make it look nicer, and then I can start adding some forms if I would like. So now I've gone around and kind of cleaned up my edge, smoothed it in. It's not perfect, but it is a starting point for adding forms. So now you can see I've smoothed out my ball. I used my wooden rib to do that, and my fingers as well. So I'm going to make sure it stays nice and moisturized. And I'm now going to add my form to the top edge. So I have a ball of wedged clay here, and I'm just going to start forming it into my desired shape. So now I just want to show you how I am making my form that I'm adding to the top of my sphere that was inspired by the grapevine and little antenna. So I'm just making a cone. I started out with a ball, and I'm just kind of like we make a coil. I'm just rolling out one side though, instead of across the whole thing. So I just slowly work that until I get the shape that I want.